All right. I will call the October meeting of the West Dakota Water Development District Board to order. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. And we have a little flag right there, so that's what it is. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please standing for the invocation. James?
Thank you, Lord, for this day. Pray that everybody can be safe and healthy at home or where they're at. Pray that we can have a good discussion with calm heads and no more bad weather, which seems to be on the horizon. Amen.
Thank you. Got a couple more. Please sign in. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Dan, would you call the roll, please?
Roll call. Cole?
Yes, here.
Bierke?
Here.
Driscoll?
Here.
Jovic?
Here.
Rollinger? Williams?
Here.
Mack?
Here.
Violata?
Here.
Harris?
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum, 8.
Okay, thank
5
you.
is a majority of votes, 6 is 2/3.
Okay, very good, thank you. Item 4, approval of the agenda.
I have two things to add.
Okay, I have one, but
Since a lot of the stuff in the last meeting got canceled.
there's two items in here that I'd like to move towards the end of the meeting because we have people in the audience, and I think those items are going to take a while. So I'd like to move item 6 and item 8 to get towards the end of the agenda, right after item number 18, items from the public. Items number 6 and item number 8.
I think we have to do agenda items before items from directors, admin, and public. If it's an agenda item, it's got to be on the agenda.
It is on the agenda.
Right, but it's got to be before public comment, usually.
Usually, but I think in this case, we're going to do it after. If people don't want to sit and wait for us to get out of the executive session, then they have an opportunity to address the board. Items from administration, items from public, and items from director and chairman. Any other changes? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
No, I had two
go ahead.
additions.
Okay.
One was something that got bumped from the last meeting, the sewer backup issue from Rapid City.
Okay.
And
Where should we put that?
number 15.
Say right between 14 and 15?
Yep.
Okay.
Call it
I guess we can
14A.
call it 14A, and what was the other one?
That'll have to be discussion of whether there's a vacant seat on the board.
What's that?
Discussion of whether there's currently a vacant seat on the board.
Where's we going to do that?
14B.
14B. Okay. I'm just writing this down right now. Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda? But, yes.
Did you want to move 6 through 8?
No, 6 and 8.
6.
7 will leave. Where's that?
And those were going to the end?
Look, between 18 and 19.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the agenda? If not, we'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Approved as amended.
As amended, yeah. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ron. Motion by Dan Driscoll. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Who was the second?
Ron Cole. So that leaves us at item number 5, approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. Everybody have a chance to look at the minutes?
I have a couple of requests
Okay, Ron?
to amend. They're mostly just sort of administrative, I guess. Because I was absent last month due to work-related deals, and I apologize for that. I did listen to the audio tape, and I identified the fact that maybe they didn't sign in, but Mr. Jaspers was here last month as well, and I think Mr. Mark Anderson was also here in attendance. And then, I don't know, I think we're doing Linda Williams a disservice by just calling her a citizen. She's here all the time and offers a lot of substantive comment. And, she's maybe identified as the spouse of one of our directors. I think we're doing her a disservice by just calling her a citizen. That's all I had.
The reason is that's how she signed in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. She wants to be a citizen. Okay. So you had those two additional
Yep.
individuals that were present.
Yep.
Is there any other items?
I think there's one item that's probably an error. Basically, at the end of the official part of the agenda, just before stating that I left the room, it states that there was a motion by Alota, seconded by Jovic, to censor and suspend Driscoll while he was still present. I certainly do not recall such a motion being made while I was still present. I think you probably have to listen to the recording. It states that Jovic stated he would contact the Attorney General. I recall that statement about the time I was exiting, but
No,
any
you're still
motion
in
that
the-
would have occurred after that, well, I was no longer there.
Nope, you're still present.
Could I offer a substitute motion that we ask the administrator to review the recording from last month and determine, what the order of events was, and then we could,
You want to listen for the door closing?
however he prefers to do it, I think it'd be appropriate to let the administrator review the video recording and see what's what and be able to, record things that actually happened when that time comes.
Right, but if I may, all I did there is record the motion, whether it's accurate or not. I have to record what was said.
Right. The wording in the minutes states, well, Driscoll was still present, and I think that part is inaccurate. So I would ask that we would review the video and find what the accuracy is. So that
Yeah,
would-
we try to call the vote while you're still in the room and you
I
ducked
thought
out the
that was
door.
in the motion itself, but I could be wrong.
I don't think we had the agenda item was being brought to the forefront. So
Okay, fair enough.
if anyone would want to second that motion, I would suggest that we review things and state things accurately.
Is there a second to Director Driscoll's motion?
I second that.
Okay. Bob Williams seconded it. Is there a discussion?
I think,
Any discussion? I wasn't there, so I'm just listening.
Right. Well, if it can be picked up on the recording, I think that it's important that it is. And Dan was, that was just a very interesting way to end the meeting. And,
So just so I understand, my action is to listen and correct as appropriate that motion?
If you can hear the door closing.
Well, I guess again, if somebody says, I move, and they state what their motion is, I have to record that motion, even if they say,
The part of the motion is while you're still in the room.
Right. I'll review the audio also, but I think it's pretty clear. Will be pretty clear cut at what time the motion was made. And
Okay.
anyhow, I think it would be best that we just defer that, and I guess we've got a second on it.
Any other discussion on the motion? Everybody understand the motion? All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign.
Nay.
One nay from James Barlotta. Motion carries. Now, we haven't acted on the agenda yet. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I had moved, so,
I thought we did.
We already did that. We're past
thought we
that.
reorganized.
We're on minutes.
yeah, we went through that.
Did we approve it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're on item 5.
Okay. Did you have that?
No, we haven't.
I didn't think we had either.
The minutes we
Yeah, because we're already on some minutes past the agenda.
Well, we were correcting the minutes, and we had a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Let's check.
Right.
And then Dan brought his thing
Let's
up.
check with the note taker. Did we get through the approval of the agenda? I thought we did.
I don't believe we have.
We did.
I thought everybody voted in favor.
Yeah, we're done with the agenda.
Okay.
But the minutes,
The minutes, we just voted to defer the minutes, action on the minutes approval until next meeting.
okay, fair enough.
Yep.
So,
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make sure that all of our motions are accurately captured by our admin, and because
I
when
totally
we
agree.
talk over them and so forth,
I totally agree. I probably was a little confused on that one, to tell you the truth. So, we're ready to go to item 7. Conflict of interest. Is there any items on the agenda that any members of the board would have a conflict? Please say so now. Director.
I have my usual standing conflict with 2 USGS items that are on the agenda. I believe there's only 2, 11 and 12 as they're listed on the agenda.
Okay,
14A is sewer backup
did you hear that,
for
Dan?
Bialotta.
James. James Bialotta. Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much. So that moves us to item 9, Treasurer's Report. Dan Malawi.
Okay. So here's the treasurer's report. Not a lot has really changed. We have funds on hand about $488,000. Admin budget spent year to date is about $58,000. Water projects expenditure year to date is about $54,000. So unless somebody wants to look at details there, I can keep going. As far as project status, we have some yet to be built. The USGS 3H has sent us an invoice that's due the end of October for about $11,000. And if you look at all our other, this is just projects, unpaid obligations are about $39,000. So,
Any
if
questions?
somebody has questions.
Any questions from the board members?
I would like, when it comes to admin comments, I would like to discuss a little bit about the bank accounts and how we might better use the money as far as savings versus CDs, things like that.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the Treasurer's Report?
Move to approve.
Moved by
Second.
Tom, seconded by James. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Item number 10.
I guess that lists me as the sponsor. I was supposed to introduce Larry Mann, who's going to,
He had, Dan had talked to him.
He said he'd be here around 6, but Larry's not here, huh?
can we accommodate him later, or does that require formal action on the agenda, which we've already gone by?
Is this a vote on
No,
item?
informational.
Just an informational?
I think you could just let it slip.
Sure.
We're not really changing what's on the agenda, and it's not an actionable item.
So we'll just move on to number 11 then, and then when Mr. Mann gets here, we can fit it in there somewhere. Is that acceptable? Okay, and we'll move on to item number 11, funding of the USGS Canyon Lake sampling. Mr.
That would be
Williams.
mine.
Yes,
And I think I saw Galen sneak in.
Galen is here.
And it's his turn in the barrel. This is for funding request we have to follow up with the Game Fish and Parks Department and the dredging effort, minus 2 sampling group areas that we used during the initial phase that we used last year. And let's see what I'll tell you about that. And the request is for about $8,000 less than the July request of $26,000. USGS would like $18,000 for that, which is about an $8,000 reduction.
Is there a motion? We should have a motion.
I'd like to move that we approve the funding for this.
Okay, is there a second? Second to the motion by James. Motion by Bob, seconded by James. Discussion from the board.
How much are we talking about?
18,000 would be our share. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, $18,000 for our share.
Who was the second?
James. James.
And who is?
Bob made the motion, seconded by James. And so, discussion.
I wanted to confirm that we had the first reading in July for for approval. This will be the second approval.
No, it was
No.
postponed.
It was postponed. This will be the first,
Okay.
that's a good point. This is the first vote on that.
I can confirm Canyon Lake is being dredged.
It is.
I
Yeah,
can too.
yeah, several of us have been out there. And we got 2 representatives here that they want to jump in, but I don't know. Seeing no
I've
discussion.
got
Oh,
some
okay, I'm
comments
sorry.
or questions.
Okay, Nathan.
I guess my standard question is, what does the taxpayer gain from this? So why would the average taxpayer at home want us to spend their money on this project?
Well, I'd like to have Galen help me on this. I think his points are placed in the, I guess it's page 10, where it talks about the water quality monitoring of Canyon Lake, and he walks through, it's an ongoing progression of water quality sampling that we had started when we wanted to start the beginning and then middle and end. This would complete the project that we started back in 2017.
Can we,
We had issues with the dredge.
She can mute maybe.
He's right next to you. Well, it's not gonna mess it up.
Yeah, nothing's going to be, just mute her.
Okay. Well, she needs to listen to this, so.
Well, she can hear her.
Okay. I'm going to take the speaker off because there's some background noise, Linda.
She should be muting it on her end, unless she wants to talk.
On her end, she should.
Mute it on her end.
Can you mute it on your end, Linda?
Even mute myself?
Yep.
Yeah.
Until you're ready to talk.
Until you're ready to talk.
Otherwise, she won't be able to jump in.
Well, yeah, because we'll be voting on this here shortly, though, so.
Okay, I will mute mine.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry, Bob, I had a tough time hearing you there.
Go ahead, Bob. There's some background noise there.
Let's see. Nathan's question was about the reason. Well, there's a couple of different reasons. We've already spent time and effort to collect prior to the dredging, and really the original project was to dredge in the middle and have sampling going on through the entire project. This project would follow on now that we have dredge set up to go follow through with that sampling effort that was truncated by having the dredging start 2 years after we started there. Is that a satisfactory answer, Galen?
Mr. Chair.
Sir, designated place to speak.
Where's the mic out there?
I think you gotta
You can
come up.
stand by
stand.
one.
Yeah, just-
I gotta just go up close to this one.
We can get right up next to me.
No, like Bob said, maybe identify myself for the record. This is Gail Morgenstern from USGS. Yeah, going off what Bob said, that's fair. We just want to close the loop on this since we, as he said, we've changed the plan since it was originally proposed. Ideally, we would have done a couple before, a couple during, a couple after. It makes for a logical progression of a before and after look at this so we can assess what's the net impact of dredging on water quality. Is it improving? Is it not improving? Is it improving temporarily? That sort of thing. So that's what we're getting out of the public out of this. And I don't know if John or if these guys want to use this time to give an update on what their status is, or if that's something they want to do later. But like I said, we've went out there. At least I went out there saying, "Take a look at what they got going on," and it's a pretty good deal.
Are we going to get a formal write-up for the dredge or the sampling effort during this?
Just be another progress report, kind of like what we did in the first phase. So we won't have a formal publication on this.
But your findings will be located.
Everything that we do as far as data collection is available on our website. So we published or we gave you guys that that presentation in the summer months, so that should be available publicly as well.
You'll be sending us another.
Yeah,
when you're
as a
finished.
result,
Okay,
I
yes.
just want to give you another overview, just a set of slides or PDF document in summary is what we have. Try to package them up as like one link you click on to get all the data summarized together.
And so you'll come to our meeting and give a short presentation?
Right, we'll do
Okay.
another wrap up after this
Okay.
phase too.
Any other questions? Dan?
Could I suggest that we include the amount in the motion?
Yes, that's probably a good idea.
So what I have up here,
It's a motion to fund the 18,000 for the sampling. Canyon Lake post dredging.
He's got it right on there.
Okay. Any other questions from the board members?
Do you think we ought to have a little party for the U.S. Game Fish and Parks Department getting their dredge afloat?
Yeah. Now we're,
It took a while. You want me to give you a quick update on that?
Yeah, sure.
Yep, this is John Carrero with Game Fish and Parks. We had a Geoform International last week come in and start doing the training with the dredge. So we went through kind of the whole setup, the bags, the operation of the dredge. Learned a lot of problems, rocks and vegetation. It's actually worked well so far. It's a small unit, but it's moved a lot of material already. So yeah, if any of you guys are around, just stop down and we'll, sometimes we're out on the dredge, but usually there's someone on shore all the time too. So you can see the setup and how it actually runs. And really, I could come at another meeting too with videos and photos of everything and how it's operating and what it's actually doing for us.
that'd be great.
And as far as Galen's sampling, it's, we want to know if there's a negative impact, of what we're doing, temporary or, as far as water quality downstream. The operation has been very clean, so far. Water coming out of the bags is very clean. It's actually in really good condition so far. As we go, more water starting to come out of the bag. We have to do a little bit more erosion control around the area that's running off in the grass, but so far no issues, and hopefully it continues that way. So But, yep, I'll be more than happy to come back at another meeting with, kind of footage, how the whole thing is set up and how it's operating.
That'd be great.
Any questions right now? Yes.
Is there a guesstimate on how long it may take?
Yeah, one of the biggest issues that we have is all the curly weed, pondweed. That slows things down because it gets caught on the impeller. So we're able to make full passes, but that's going to take a little while. We're working the inlet area right now, so there are some more rocks. So we have a rock guard in front of it right now. As we move to the rest of the lake, we're hoping to take that rock guard off, which will help with the vegetation passing through too. So, it's hard to give a good estimate yet, but we're getting I'll have a better idea next time since we've only run it a few days so far.
A month, a year?
More than a month.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you expect to finish before winter? Or?
No, we will not. I mean, we're covering a lot of area. There's a lot of material to move. When we operate it, and you'll see in videos that I'll have, I mean, you make a pass, you come back, you dig deeper, come back. So it's not a fast process, but it's moving material.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Nathan?
What are you doing with the waste material?
It's going to the cement plant.
Good.
They're using it for reclamation.
Good. They're putting it into product or what?
No. I mean,
Filling mine holes.
Yeah, they're digging material
Okay,
and they
gotcha.
reclaim those areas, so it'll be a good product for them.
Good.
Topsoil.
Yeah, make
Topsoil.
excellent topsoil after a year.
Ron?
I just had one question, maybe to give folks a perspective on the scale. Those bags are fairly sizable. What's the dimension, and then, what's the volume when one of those bags is supposed to be, in quotes, full?
Yeah,
Is it-
each bag, I mean, the longest bags are 190 feet long. And when they're full, they're about 60 feet in circumference, and they'll be about 5 feet tall when they're full.
Wow.
So, and that will hold about 1,000 cubic yards.
1,000 per bag?
Yep.
Okay.
No?
I have a question about the type of sampling. Is it true that you guys are going to be doing sampling in addition to?
Yeah, ours, I mean, we're doing what's required by the permit, so it's not as extensive as far as,
E. coli and those things probably aren't going to be sampled.
No.
But it's going to be turbidity and
total suspended solids
Suspended
is the main thing. So all the supplemental information from that other study, I mean, will give us.
should
real
have
great-
you.
Yeah, no, it's all very good supplemental info.
Yeah, Nathan?
So it's probably more a question for Galen, I don't know, but it's in regard to our motion here. Let's say the results show very high total suspended solids and whatever else as a result of the dredging operations. Then what?
Well, and that
What
falls,
happens now?
That falls under the permit. We have to stay under a certain level. Otherwise, we have to come up with different alternatives in how we're doing things and controlling
Okay.
that. But his is much more extensive, as far as much more detailed information, which is excellent to have, especially in a flowing system, which ends up downstream. So, I mean, right now, like I said, everything seems very clean, but that's good information to have. See if there's any negative impacts.
Is the permit with the DENR?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, Corps of Engineers, DENR.
Corps of Engineers.
Yep.
Okay. Dan?
Just for discussion, I guess I'd ask Galen, I seem to perceive a bit of confusion. Game and Fish, you're sampling basically on a daily or perhaps more than daily for discharge permitting purposes, correct?
Yeah.
So, Galen, is it accurate that what we're really looking at is a before and after picture in terms of what goes on in the lake relative to before sediments are being removed and then in the ensuing months afterwards?
Yeah, that's basically where we're taking a more comprehensive look at the before and after, as opposed to we're not doing any of the during stuff. So, yeah, that's right. So we'll come in after they're wrapping up and probably do 4 monthly samples or something to that extent to see how it recovers over the next.
Totally different scenarios.
Okay. All right, I think we're ready to vote on it. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
No.
Dan, this is Linda.
Oh, yeah, Linda.
Can you repeat the motion for me, please?
The motion, could you put it up there a second, Dan? The motion was made by Williams, seconded by Bialotta, to fund the USGS Canyon Lake sampling request for $18,000.
Okay, thank you.
And what is your vote on that?
I vote in favor.
Okay, so it's,
So motion carries, we have 1 nay.
and 1 nay by Nathan. Motion carries. Thank you for coming. I think before these gentlemen are here, and we had you on the agenda as number 10. We just finished number 11, so if you guys are ready, Dan Driscoll, if you want to introduce.
Sure. I'd like to introduce Larry Mann, who I knew many years ago. He was a member of steering committee for Black Hills hydrology study that USGS was pretty involved with West Dakota and a wide variety of other stakeholders. Larry was one of those, and I think you were kind of a representative relative to mining issues in the Black Hills. So Larry had called, he's involved with this activity taking place along Rapid Creek, the F3 gold exploration, and he kind of wanted to come in and give a short update, and I'd emphasized short, but here you are, Larry.
And thanks to Dan for all his help, and thank you for helping us get on the agenda. And thanks to Dan Lally for setting us up here. We got a few slides, but I want to introduce the two principals of F3 Gold. And back there is Rob Bergman, and the other one is Brian Lenz, and they're both the principals of LLC or F3 Gold LLC. And hopefully this is the first of a number of meetings. This is just kind of an introduction for you. There's no ask here. There's no action for you to take. It's just something to make sure you understand what's going on, and we will be happy over the course of time to come back and keep you up to date with what's going on.
Very good.
Great. Well, thanks to everybody for having us. Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time out of your agenda to kind of hear from us, and we just want to take the opportunity, as Larry said, to introduce a little bit about us and our project, and give you guys some basic information. We did try to keep this brief. We know we got limited time, and we'll focus a bit more on the water than anything, since we know that's what you guys are interested in. But ultimately, just kind of start by clarifying who we are and what our company is comprised of. We're basically an exploration company, not a mining company. We're very heavily focused on responsible exploration through safety and sustainability, environmental and social stewardship practices. And basically, our approach to exploration really makes us one of the most qualified explorers in the hills to continue the search for gold over time, if you will. Our team, ultimately, we've got a more extensive team, but the primary focus here is just Brian and I. We have a very wide base of experience across all commodities in North America, mainly hard rock. We don't really do any oil and gas work, but we do have a very diversified set of experience doing exploratory programs all over North America for all different types of commodities, not just gold. As you can see, just some kind of quick stats there in some of our kind of more recent years, some of the stats we've been able to accomplish. Basically our model is what we call a new eyes on old rocks approach, and that comes from a geologic perspective, but that also comes from kind of our approach to everything, from environmental stewardship, social stewardship, basically being the next generation of the exploration industry. We're some young, passionate entrepreneurs, and we really see ourselves as the future of exploration. And we're explorer scientists. We're not bankers. We didn't come from the finance industry. We're geologists. We love rocks. We love the earth. We study the earth. And really that's been our focus, is to be a solution-driven group of explorer scientists. Ultimately, focusing on environmental stewardship, social responsibility, and creating value and a positive impact is really our biggest goal. And really to create sustainable mineral development in the U.S. for U.S.-made kind of opportunities and prosperity, which in the last 30 years has diminished a bit.
So, why are we looking for gold? Obviously, there's a history of that out here in the Black Hills region, but really gold is a strategic and critical mineral that is vital to a lot of different industries throughout our economy, both as a country, but also here locally in the Midwest and in South Dakota. National defense, aerospace industries, technology industries. Gold is a really strategic mineral for that. So it's not just to hoard in the vaults of banks, but really over the past decade, it's become a really important component of many industries. And so, in order to find gold, you have to look for it. And so the systematic seeking of that is exploration. We've been out here for the past decade mapping the rocks, really taking our new eyes on old rocks approach to reassessing a lot of the areas to try and find the right scientific criteria for the happy places for gold, if you will. And that's ultimately led us, one of our places is in Silver City, and that next step to really understand if there's a gold deposit is for exploratory drilling. And that's what we've submitted a permit application with the U.S. Forest Service. A little bit on, kind of some simple facts on exploratory drilling. It's similar to drilling a water well, if you will. It's a very low impact, very minimal footprint type of operation that uses just a few components in the process: potable water, clay or bentonite, steel pipe, and some biodegradable lubricants. So really, you're not utilizing any toxic or hazardous substances, which is a common misconception of the diamond drilling process.
I mean, the easiest analogy is it's the similar process to drilling a water well to get water at your house, for example. The practice of drilling is ultimately the same.
So a little bit of a visual, we're from Minnesota. We do a lot of exploration drilling in northern Minnesota. Minnesota is known as a land of 10,000 lakes. We have a lot of protected water sources, a lot of water in Minnesota, so it's a really big issue in Minnesota as well. Exploration drilling in Minnesota has been and continues to happen, over decades of exploration drilling. And this is kind of what it looks like. We just wanted to put a little visual up here. If you haven't ever, seen or been exposed to that, so you can see the site kind of in the wintertime when they're conducting the drilling with the equipment. The holes are capped, sealed according to state and federal regulations. And then on the far right, you see reclamation after 1 year, really reclaiming that site back to the forest. And unless some of these older sites where they had drilled, unless you really knew where to look for them, you could walk right over it and you probably wouldn't know it was there.
So Silver City, our current plan of operations application that we had submitted to the Forest Service, just to give you a quick snapshot, basically we're looking at doing less than a year's worth of exploratory drilling on 3.8 total acres of potential surface disturbance. And I say potential because we've planned a lot of pads to have some flexibility, in going through this process of ultimately up to 2 years to get a permit. You have to try to build in some flexibility. So there's not necessarily the guarantee by any means that we're going to drill from every location and have that total surface impact. But that is our maximum impact. And some of the key things to keep in mind is we are not mining, milling, or processing any materials or minerals. We're not excavating, dredging, or putting in sumps either, which is quite a bit different than kind of historical operations in the hills. We're not going to be extracting any water from Rapid Creek watershed, and we won't be using any hazardous chemicals or substances. To give you kind of the snapshot, right now we're in this permitting phase. We're looking at 12 to 24 months of that. Again, about 12 months or less drilling is our planned activities, and then we'll be reclaiming that as soon as possible afterwards, as soon as weather permits, to get that land back to its original kind of scenic value. This is just a quick look at the kind of permitting process timeline and where we're at in that. We submitted our application. We're currently undergoing the NEPA review for the Forest Service to begin their environmental analysis study. And an interesting fact, I guess, with that is that historically in the Black Hills, with I couldn't quote the exact number of drill holes, but thousands and thousands, if not tens of thousands, of drill holes that have occurred in this region over time. Really, for the most part, haven't had to go through an environmental analysis process. So this is we're kind of paving new ground in what we're doing out here, and we're very happy to do that. Really, just because our approach involves going above and beyond, and high level of transparency. So the idea, we'll get through the environmental analysis and commence our drilling. The big thing is really we do have a very, very kind of extensive environmental management plan. It's comprehensive, transparent, responsible, and those are very big pillars to us as individuals. Again, I can't reiterate enough that we got into this because we love the earth. We went to school to study geoscience, which is the study of earth. And so what we'll focus on here today is a little bit more of kind of the water quality and some of our measures and tactics to kind of ensure a responsible, transparent move forward on our exploratory drilling in the use and interaction with water. Basically, we recognize that water is of critical importance to not just the human species, but to all biological species and everything else of that nature. And we want to do everything in our power we can to protect and mitigate all risks associated with water, especially in our activities. To do that, we will not be drilling in the Minnelusa or Madison aquifers. We will not be extracting water from Rapid Creek watershed. Again, not using any hazardous chemicals or substance, using clean potable water from municipal source. And we're going to be using a really kind of a cuttings management system for recycling our water in the drilling process that we've employed in areas where we have to actually drill on lakes and drill over water. So it's kind of the highest level of standard you could apply to risk mitigation when it comes to water and interaction with drilling. And that's really our goal, is to just do this responsibly and transparent. Ultimately, our approach is updating our geologic model and theories and testing our concepts at depth. We want to conduct our work always in a socially and environmentally and economically responsible manner. And a big part of our goal is to partner with local groups, inform local organizations about what we're doing, and really work towards win-win opportunities. And, to kind of fulfill our passion of finding a new economic gold discovery here in the United States. Kind of with that, we've got question, comment here you can submit to us anytime, and we're always happy to come back for more meetings and chat with you guys.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I have just a few questions for you. Since you're not a mining company and exploration only, do you guys have this claim?
Yep.
So you own the claim currently?
Yes.
And then if you discover gold, you're going to sell that claim? Or
Potentially.
Lease it?
Potentially. Yep.
Okay. But you're not under contract with anybody else. It's your claim. You own it.
We own the claims. Yep. Yeah. F3 Gold is the claimant and claim owner and operator submitting the permit. Yep. You bet.
How deep are your exploratory wells?
Yeah.
Typically?
Great question.
Good question. So we're looking at the geology. We're looking deep. So we're our drill holes will range to 500 feet to a few thousand feet to kind of test test some hypotheses that we have from a scientific perspective for something that would exist deeper.
So how deep are the Minnelusa and Madison wells?
There aren't any Minnelusa or Madison wells where we are, so we're in the central Precambrian, the central district, the Black Hills and the Precambrian rocks. So we're about, I would have to look at a map to measure exactly how far away, but we're quite far away from those aquifers.
What formation is it that you're starting in?
The Precambrian?
Yep.
Which formation is it? Is there a formation there, or is it?
Well, it's widely debated by geologists on what the actual formation is. I guess by definition, it's a metabasalt, which is a metamorphosed basaltic kind of unit for the most part, but it varies, right? Like that's one of the things we've been doing is trying to map and understand the rocks. And the Black Hills is so unique because it allows us a window into geologic time that you really can't see in many other places in the world. This Precambrian terrain of 1.8 billion-year-old rocks, right? So,
How do you typically seal these when you're done?
Yeah, so great question. So the DENR has a pretty detailed process for the sealing and abandoning of wells and drill holes. Essentially, they get sealed up as soon as they're done being drilled. So as soon as the drilling is complete, they seal the holes up and cap them, and those are filed then with the state. So very similar process in Minnesota, and we're actually licensed in the state of Minnesota to, we have a special license with the Department of Health in Minnesota to do similar work. So it's
in Minnesota, you have to be certified to be able to abandon any drill hole, whether it's a water well, diamond drill hole.
And abandon is a little bit of a confusing word because it's not like we drill a hole and we walk away. There is a very specific sealing process to ensure that it doesn't allow for any water to pass through, and that hole is essentially all plugged up.
And the DNR will dictate.
Is it full depth? You seal at full depth?
We are still, usually is, and the DNR will dictate the full process to us as part of their review of our notice of intent and permit application. So,
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
I noticed the truck that you used. Is your claim right off the road somewhere? So you won't have to be driving, or do you have to make your own roads into your claim?
Yeah,
It's extremely steep up there, right?
Yeah,
it can be in Silver City, yeah. Yeah, we propose zero road construction. There's some overland trail usage, most of which we've employed the use of existing trails that have been out there that we've identified. We took a lot of time to go out and pre-map the area so that our plan could test our scientific concepts in the most limited impact way. Because again, we really do care about leaving the place better than when we left it, and having a minimal impact.
So let's say you find gold. Say there's drilled holes and there's gold everywhere. Now what?
Well, first of all, we'll be very happy because that's our primary goal. But ultimately, the process of gold exploration is a very long one, right? In the essence of understanding economic feasibility. So I understand your question is probably what happens then, and it's really hard for us to answer because we can't really predict that future. You have to find a significant amount of gold in today's society to have it be attractive enough to even consider production of it. And so it's really hard for us to speculate that we will find that much. In doing so, we will be basically trying to develop that to a deposit scale, which, finding gold is one thing. To understand that you have a scalable deposit is the next step. So that would be the next step in the process.
And for us, we would want to, the next step, we would want to partner that or find, the right group that shares our values and our vision, because we like to think we have a long career ahead of us, and so reputation is big for us as well. And we intend to continue to do exploration throughout the United States, but also here in the Black Hills, and we don't. It's in our best interest to make sure we do it the right way, and that's we feel very strongly about that.
Where are you from in Minnesota?
I'm from a little river town called Stillwater, St. Croix River. Yeah, so that's where I live with now my wife and 3 kids.
Same, I've got a wife and only 2 kids, and just keep it pretty happy with that. But yep, Stillwater, Minnesota, on the beautiful St. Croix.
Any other questions?
A comment. One of the basis for my question earlier was that there are a lot of people in this area that are suspicious of these types of activities just because we've been burned by them in the past. There are probably people in the audience that would be very opposed to any kind of mining in the area. So I don't know if you're aware of that. You probably are. I don't know if you've got anything other than what you've already said that you'd like to say to address that.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we wanted to come here. We've been continuing to reach out to a lot of different groups. We presented to the Silver City community earlier this year, and I gave them, almost a 2-hour presentation and question and answer session. So, we wanted to connect with you and make sure that we're continuing to get our message out and just provide that connection to us, so that if people have questions or concerns, or they want to, learn more about our project, that they know how to do that. And it's part of our transparency. So that's why we're here.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Just taking an ethical, transparent approach to exploration methodology, And as we go through the permitting process and understand more, we're happy to, like you said, come back and update you guys. We're still waiting to hear a lot from the Forest Service, but yeah.
Good question. Oh. Hello?
Dan? Oh, I don't know how we went to FaceTime, but I see you.
I can see you now. You're looking good. Well, you can stay on FaceTime. You probably didn't hear the presentation. Did you? Or?
Okay, no, I could hear the presentation
Okay.
fine. I don't know why it switched to FaceTime, but if I can get rid of that, I will.
Ron, yes.
Just a comment. I attended the Silver City presentation that FB made, and it was a really lively discussion. I think it's another good forum to have here in our meeting where we have various publics to kind of reflect on what they've proposed. One of the unique things that I understood, and I guess I'm not a geologist, so you confirmed that again, is that you're drilling in a place where there is no real water. You're drilling in that hard rock area where the folks in Silver City even have to struggle to find a little bit of bad water someplace.
That's not
So it's not into the minerals or Madison or any of those aquifers that we depend on.
Quite distant. That's correct.
Dan?
I'll just relate a little bit of history. Back when Larry and I used to rub shoulders on occasion, similar things had been one of the drivers of the Black Hills hydrology study, which encompassed counties as far north as Newton, Lawrence, as far south as Fall River County. But one of the big driving issues was the mining development that was taking place in Lawrence County, and the Lawrence County commissioners were struggling weighing the environmental concerns versus the economic development. There was a great deal of exploration that occurred in advance of the mining, and then as it turned out, 4 major open, surface mines that eventually developed. But that was very much one of the driving factors. The Lawrence County commissioners really partnered with West Dakota as the primary stakeholders in bringing in the other counties. Their main issue, what are the environmental considerations here? And they wanted background information on water quality. And so, the exploration end of things is, very commonplace. And the bigger question, of course, that occurs is, you will find gold. That there is gold there. How much will you find? How rich will be the deposits? Will it be sufficiently concentrated to, justify, development of mine remains to be determined. But that's a big part of what West Dakota was involved in. Basically starting in the late '80s and early 1990s. So.
James?
I'm very happy to see you guys do responsible, environmental friendly exploration. But one can be said that you also need to look into who you're selling your claim to when you're finished. Because you can be as clean as a baby's bottom and sell it to the top bidder, and the top bidder will be happy to turn into a new Superfund site like they have up in Lee Deadwood right now. There's several mines that the state's going to be working on for probably the next 20 to 50 years that are Superfund sites. And the only reason why is because crime pays. That the amount of fine and the amount of their bond required to hold the environmental impact bond is so low that it's cost effective for a company not to care about it.
I think think historically that might have been more the case than nowadays too, because I believe those super fund sites, correct me if I'm wrong, but they predate a lot of the regulatory policy that's currently in place, or post-date?
Post-date. Those mines closed
But
in the last
to your
20,
point,
30 years.
to assure you, we agree completely, and the amount of diligence we put into our exploration efforts would be the same amount of diligence we would be looking for in a potential suitor. As Brian said, we're not here just to take the highest bidder and make the most money. If we would, we wouldn't take the approach we're taking at an exploration level. I mean, the approach we're taking is going to cost more money than the average exploration project and things of that nature, right? So I think it goes back to our principles and values and our, responsibility to do our due diligence on whoever we would be looking at as a future partner. So, in any context, since we are just speculating on the future, that's about what I can assure you.
All right. No further questions, so appreciate you coming.
Thank you guys for giving us the time again, and
You
we
bet.
really appreciate it. And we'll stop back, in the future if you guys are interested in hearing more, and especially as things develop a little bit more.
Yeah, I think
Happy to give you an update.
we'd like to get an update.
Great.
Yeah, thank you again.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Larry. Good seeing you again.
And special thanks to Dan for helping us out with the time and the technology.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, see you guys.
Okay. Moving to item 12, cost share of the USGS stream flow gauges for Castle Creek above Deerfield Lake and Rhodes Fork of Rapid Creek near Rochester. First vote. Everybody had a chance to look at the agreement that was provided from the USGS. Basically, our share of the total cost for those two stream gauges is, if I understand this right, it's $15,600. And I'd make the motion that we approve what is it? Our share. 15,600 was our share. Our share. 15,600. Okay, that's right. I move approval of the funding for the next fiscal year for those two stream gauges, as mentioned, in the amount of $15,600. Seconded by Ron. Discussion. James.
Are we now just taking invoices through the mail without anybody actually coming to present?
There's somebody here from the USGS. There are questions.
Okay. Last year, I noticed that we paid for services we didn't actually receive. That stream gauge billing was for the entire year, yet it started late.
Could we get him to step by the mic?
Yeah, could you come up and sit by the mic so we can get you on the record? And identify yourself, please, for the record.
My name is Joel Peterson. I'm with the U.S. Geological Survey. So, yeah, we reinstalled the Rhodes Fork gauge on April 1st, or first week in April. I'm not sure if it was the first.
And then we were billed for the full year for that gauge.
Last year. I cannot answer that.
I think part of the issue was that, we voted not to fund those for a time period. The county stepped in and funded some of it and not all of it. And then the board voted to reinstate that. We were kind of mid-year.
That's correct.
So that dollar amount was, I do not believe that dollar amount that we paid, which was 11,000 something, if I remember right, was not for a full year. So this amount, right, 15,600, is close to what we were paying a couple of years ago for those two gauges for a full year.
Yes.
That Rhodes Fork, did they completely remove all of the equipment that was right next to that weir?
No.
What did you say, Bob?
I'm asking, was it Rhodes Fork that you rebuilt?
Yeah, we removed the electronics of it initially, but
they didn't have
the
to
shelter was still there.
Build the entire thing?
No.
Okay. And the one at Deerfield is the same deal?
That's right.
just pulled their electronics so it couldn't be stolen.
Yes.
That-
Nathan?
I got a couple of questions. Excuse me. Get that back. Good. I don't want to miss out on Ron's comments. So, in regard to the contribution amounts here, you're asking for $15,600 from us, and then it says $11,840 from you guys.
Yeah, on those 2 gauges, that's our contribution.
Okay, so first off, what does that mean, contribution? So is that like an in-kind contribution?
No, that's actual funds.
Okay. And then why are we paying? How did the $15,600 come up? I mean, why isn't it a split that you're looking at?
The difference in the cost of the 2 gauges is because the Bureau of Reclamation pays 25% of the Castle Creek gauge. Is that what you're asking?
I'm asking, why aren't you guys paying more?
Our co-op funds have been level or decreasing over the last 10 years. So as costs go up, our co-op funds have not been increasing at the same rate.
So you're expecting your partners to pay more, and you guys pay the same or less?
We pay as much as we can. Our co-op funds will almost.
Okay. So if your co-op funds drop to nothing next year, then you'll be coming to us for the full cost.
We'll be looking for more partners. It doesn't seem to be the case, but who knows?
All right. We had a lengthy discussion about this, obviously, a couple of years ago. One of the things that I was really disappointed in your agency in regard to this was we had one of our directors, Director Bialotta, was able to find some information where other states are doing this on their own. And the question came up as far as if we did that, if we decided to do this on our own, and we could find, somebody that was able and willing to maintain those, would the USGS take that data? And the answer was no.
Right.
So to me, that seems very inflexible. It's like you're setting up a system where you're crowding out the opportunities for others to come in and provide those same services. And to me, that seems very inappropriate.
There are occasions.
Let me finish. One example that I would give you in regard to different data is a GIS office that I'm familiar with that incorporates data from wherever they can get it. Okay, and then they just simply annotate the data that this came from here and this came from there. And I didn't know why it was that you guys couldn't do something like that. Why can't you do something like that? Why do you maintain an inflexibility that basically disallows data coming in from other sources like that?
We do publish furnished data at times, but it has a rigorous quality control, quality component to it, so it's hard to meet that, but we will accept data if that's the case.
No, the answer was no. You said I think your supervisor, wasn't it Joyce, that told us no, they wouldn't do that?
Yes, that's correct.
I don't know. To me, it didn't seem very customer friendly. Didn't seem like, it seemed like you were trying to crowd out other opportunities. So I very much disagree with that.
I think it told me something about the nature of the agency. I'm going to vote against this. I know more than likely you'll probably get your funds from the other directors on the board here, but I'm not happy with how your agency has conducted themselves in regard to this. So.
Doc?
Thanks for coming, sharing with us. One of my questions for Director Williamson was, are these two gauges part of any flood control or equipment to monitor emergency flood?
Well, the Weather Service uses data, obviously, for, whatever location they're seeing rain. So, I mean, they have the access to the same data that we do.
Sure.
But yours isn't
But
in real time.
that's
Yours don't have real-time monitors on them, so they cannot use them. That's not what we were told by Joyce. In fact, Rapid City Emergency Management says it's not possible to use those gauges because they weren't broadcast transmitted.
They are. They're satellite transmitters within those sites. So, I mean, we can look them up at any time.
So it'll have today's flow on it right now.
Yep.
Okay. But Emergency Management also stated that these also are not in any kind of flood condition ever because there's...
Well, it might not be critical to the areas they're looking at, but they're certainly available.
if there's an increased flow in that small little portion of the valley that those are existing in, right?
Yes. Yeah, they broadcast every hour, collect data every 5 to 15 minutes, and broadcast that once an hour.
I think I still have the floor, right?
Yes, you do.
All right. The other thing I had a little problem with last time was, if you notice the price, we were paying more than half. And when asked if we owned those, the answer was no. Has that answer changed?
I can't answer that.
I mean, we are now going to be, what is it, 15,000, and the other contributors are going to make up? I don't remember. I didn't write it down. Anyway, so if it's no, I'm going to have a hard time voting for it too. If the data was critical to early warning for anybody in a floodplain that goes right through my part of the district, which is Rapid Creek, I would be more than willing to go with this. Is the data used by USGS in some form that's critical? By this I mean, is the data so critical that you can't do without it?
I think it really is used for...
I know the history part.
Right. Reservoir management a lot of times.
Okay.
Early indicator of aquifer conditions.
And I think that's critical. Long-term data is always good when you're trying to do analysis. Yeah. I just find it really strange that USGS can't find, the 15,000 from when they, and make the case for these two things to be funded through your projects. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Well, just a comment, I guess, to Mr. Director Williams. We talked about these to some degree at length last time, and these particular gauges, the way I characterize them as, I'm not a geologist or a hydrologist, but they're kind of the canary in the mine, as they're very close to the groundwater upwellings. They help inform, reservoir management, and basically all of us here enjoy the benefits of a groundwater-driven water supply system. So from my perspective, these two gauges are pretty important links in understanding what's going on, monitoring basically our lifeline to the water.
I have two things. I know when these were down for a year, the question was asked, did anybody call for that data? And the answer was flat out no. Nobody requested that data in the time period it was off. My other thing I'm having a real problem with is there's a cost breakdown here. And this cost breakdown does not show any other entity paying for this. and I want to see that. What is the total cost, and who's paying what where?
Well, I don't think it's clearly shown here, but the full cost of a full-time gauge is $15,680. If you take 25% of that, or well, 75% of that is that $11,760. Bureau of Reclamation picks up that 25% of that Castle Creek gauge.
So the Bureau of Rec is paying the difference between the 15,680 and the 11,770.
Yeah, it's 3,900.
So if they're paying 25% on that gauge, why are we paying the full 50% on that gauge? Why aren't we paying 25%? So that way our cost share, because you get 50% cost share on this, correct? But yet we're being billed for more than 50%.
Yeah, it's 57 and 43 is the breakdown currently.
But the USGS guidelines are 50%, correct?
Well, that's changed over time.
Joyce was at our meeting and she said, basically what you said is that USGS is paying a lower percent. Actually, when I worked for the city, the USGS paid more than 50%, but it's gone down over the years because of
What meeting
federal
was
funds.
Joyce at?
This one.
Right, a year ago?
No, just this summer.
Okay.
And she said that somebody asked, and maybe you asked the same question to her, but she said the trend is for the partner to pay a higher percentage based on their funding. And so for the years I've been on here, I mean, it has not been 50%. The partner has paid a higher proportion than 50%.
Yeah.
But
I think we as well, are you done or not?
no, I still
Okay,
have
go
the
ahead.
floor, I
I'm
thought.
sorry. Go ahead.
The other thing is, they're saying their cost share is only out-of-pocket costs, but that's not true. That cost share is their vehicles, their employees, that they're paying from one budget to the next. They're taking it from this budget, and they're going to pay their employees out of that budget. They're going to pay their gas, their mileage,
Yep.
and their vehicles. And I buy government fleet vehicles all the time, and if I told you how much U.S. Geological Survey wastes by selling vehicles with only 60,000 miles on them, it would make everybody's head spin, because that's where I tell governments to go get their vehicles from. In fact, the state makes a big business out of selling federal surplus property. That place out in Box Elder, that's a state-run organization that resells federal surplus, because they like to have brand new vehicles with only 60,000 miles or less.
Dan, you have a comment?
I would suggest that if this makes it to a second vote, that there be a request to USGS to show the full breakdown of contributions from other agencies, so you can see the full cost of gauges.
Fair
And
enough.
that would be easily
Yeah, that's fair enough.
done. So,
That's a good
ask
suggestion.
for.
Yes, you Nathan.
I'd like to add to that, could we see what the actual expenses are? Do you have them broken down so that you could show us that it actually costs, what it actually costs for these?
I can talk to my supervisors.
And where does the number come from?
That's the cost we developed that over the whole network. So, yeah, I mean, it's the cost of doing business.
So you take the cost, whatever you feel is the cost associated with the stream gauges, and divide it by the number of stream gauges?
That's right.
I guess how do we as a customer know that that's accurate? I mean, how do we know that we're getting a fair deal?
Well, I think if you look at the surrounding states, I think and I don't know the exact numbers, honestly. I don't typically deal with budget things. But we're either the same or lower than all the surrounding states, I believe. So,
Well, maybe if you could you heard some of the concerns of the board members. And,
Yeah, I could respond
you
to
have
that and let you know what the surrounding states.
Yeah, if Joyce is available for the next meeting, maybe she can come to our next meeting, because that's the second vote on this, if it passes here tonight.
Yes.
So, any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign.
No.
Nay.
3 noes, Nathan, James, and Robert. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Thank you. Okay, item number.
Did Director Driscoll abstain?
I abstain.
So it carried. What was the?
Motion carries 5 to 4.
No.
No, there's three noes.
But there was an abstention.
And 1 abstention, yes. 3 noes and 1 abstention.
4-3.
Okay. Okay, motion carried. Thank you.
Linda was on the phone voting.
Linda voted aye. Did you get that, Dan?
Yeah, what counts are the yeas.
Okay.
Not the nays.
Gotcha. Okay, item 13, update and opportunities for collaboration on stormwater management / mitigation. Driscoll.
Well, just a short update. This has kind of been simmering for a while. Some combination of Chairman Bierke and myself have talked with, several different potential partners in the stormwater management or mitigation business. Most notably, a couple of discussions with staff from City of Rapid City talking about potential. I think it's safe to say there's a lot of interest there. Another good discussion with the Pennington County people who have, in essence, the jurisdiction for urbanizing areas that are outside of the city boundaries, which constitute a pretty substantial area. Result of those discussions, the last meeting that Chairman Bierke and I had with City of Rapid City, they were going to communicate with people from Pennington County and talk about some possibilities and then get back to us. So we're kind of waiting to see what develops there, but a lot of what I'd call positive interest on what the possibilities might be. One more group that I've talked with, I don't think the Chairman's been involved there, but several meetings over the course of several months with people at School 9. So they're interested from several standpoints. It's basically stormwater management is one of their programs within civil engineering. They've got a group of people that tend to work in the arena of sustainability, a lot of interest from that standpoint. And then specifically the campus where we hold our meetings, there's a lot of impervious surface here, most of which was built before stormwater management was recognized as something that ought to be done. There's a lot of room. There's very little what you'd think of as typical, stormwater management sort of infrastructure. Had this campus been built, 10 or 20 years ago instead of 100 years ago, things might look a little different. But there's some interest in looking at some, you might think of it as retrofits there. So various things like that have been sort of simmering, and there's really nothing on ready for a front burner quite yet. But I think sometime in the course of the months to come, we'll probably have some sort of firm proposals to put on the table at some point in time.
One of the things I'm glad the city offered to meet with us and discuss what they're doing in terms of stormwater management. I'm really more interested in the water quality. I used to work for the city. We designed things for stormwater volume. Never even thought about putting in features that would actually look at improving the water quality. And I know everybody is familiar with Rapid Creek, and when we have a big storm, some of those drainages there's a lot of silt running into Rapid Creek. The creek runs red for quite a while before it clears out. And you know, my interest in this conversation is when they're designing these stormwater projects, they need to take a look at the water quality aspects of designing infrastructure for handling stormwater. So, and as Dan said, they're paying attention, and matter of fact, they're looking at maybe a couple of projects that would have a water quality feature that maybe we could partner with them. But this, like Dan said, it's down the road, and it's just kind of right now, some brainstorming back and forth. It's going to be down the road before we probably would have a project coming forward. But anyway, I thought it was good that we had a chance to visit with them what they're planning on doing with stormwater. Yes.
Well, I'll just chime in. You know, water quality has been certainly one of the primary drivers all along. You know, stormwater uncontrolled always carries a fair amount of suspended sediment and typically other undesirable constituents, and controlling stormwater, the extent to which you can control it tends to improve water quality, and there are additional benefits that perhaps can be derived relative to, you know, localized flooding, you know, in many of our you know, urban settings. So seems like a lot of potential benefit there, and certainly looking forward to seeing what develops here in the months to come.
Yeah, this is just a for information item, no action.
I have a question about this.
Yeah.
You know, just to play devil's advocate, I know there's quite a bit of water features around Rapid Creek now to stop direct storm flow from streets and businesses to the creek, which is great, and I believe water quality is of utmost concern. But why on earth would I tell the taxpayers of the board that we're going to give their money to the city, who is already separately taxing them for stormwater runoff, including agencies and businesses, or entities, I should say, that are traditionally untaxed, such as nonprofits and churches, which now are taxed because they wrote the law in a way that it's considered a special assessment, not a tax. So that way they could even go after churches for stormwater runoff. Even in pointing case, the church that has their own water drainage, they're being billed for water drainage, even though they have their own proprietary water drainage system. What do I tell those people that we're going to give the city of Rapid more money into a taxing entity that's already taxing without doing work?
Well, yeah, to answer your question, you know, their stormwater management plan, and yes, they're paying a drainage fee, more or less is what they call it. But if you're a property owner and can show the city that you have made improvements that address water quality, retain water on your property, you get credit for that right now. So
I have not seen anybody.
Oh yeah, there's some that do it, and especially the developers. The city does require new development to manage their stormwater, but they haven't really paid a lot of attention to designing infrastructure on there that addresses water quality. It's more holding the water back so you're not flooding the person that's down the bottom of the hill. That's been their practice for years. It was that way when I was there. And now, you're right, they're putting in some features along Rapid Creek. You know, we've gone to some of these hydrology conferences and had a chance to see some of the things you're doing, which is great. But there's a lot of drainage bases. They have a master drainage plan for all the drainage systems within the city, and even that come from the county into the city, that they have a plan for. But those plans are really more on the hydraulics part of it rather than looking at water quality. And there's some things that they can do, and we had a real good discussion in a couple of meetings about taking a look at that. And maybe that's something that, you know, our board would be interested in assisting in, because they're a large taxpayer. They pay a lot of the money that comes into our district, so they are taxpayers, and they help fund our program here for West Dakota Water Development, just within the city. So they do have an interest in that. The taxpayers do.
Yeah, I'm saying they're already paying the tax once.
Well, it's a different tax.
I think a lot of it just boils down to a difference in perspectives and opinions. And my perspective, my opinion is that I just don't see a better use of West Dakota dollars than to try to partner with other agencies, entities, in trying to improve water quality and mitigate, localized flooding through improved management of stormwater. To me, it's one of the best things that we could do with our funds. I recognize there are converse opinions.
You have a question?
Yeah, I have a converse opinion on this. The Rapid City, we did a very detailed study of Rapid Creek. That information was handed over to the city, and I would rather see the city clean up the problem that they've got with Rapid Creek from the bottom of Canyon Lake to East St. Patrick Street Bridge, and show some, give one little hint that maybe they would like to get in there, take care of the problem, which could be anything from septics to sewer systems that have blown out because of running your runoff water right straight into the sewer. Who knows what the reason is? We know for a fact that the contamination in that reach of the creek, in that 8-mile reach, needs to have direct and immediate, more or less, attention. And I haven't heard that in the paper. I haven't heard that from the city. Have you in your discussions?
Yeah, I went down there and they offered $50,000 to go for that study, and our board turned it down.
Yeah, and I voted against it because what they wanted was complete control over the eventual findings.
No, not true.
No, it
Well,
was exactly.
that was why I voted no.
That's not true. They wanted to be a partner in it, and
And they got the findings first and whether they disclosed them to us or not.
Yeah.
They hadn't budgeted any money for that, and they offered to come $50,000. And yes, they had an agreement that we had to sign, and the board members decided they didn't like the agreement, so we turned it down. I voted for it.
I voted against it because of the fact that they were going
So,
to change those. They had
and I can
final
tell you-
say on the report.
I can tell you about right now, they are interested in the water quality.
Okay, that's good.
They
Thank you. That's
really
what I
are.
asked.
It hasn't gone away.
Good.
So, anyway, that was just for information item. Thanks for listening. All right, number 14. I can read it off here. Funding approval for travel from Dan Mullally, to attend the meeting for the Water District Admin in Pier 2019. Tom?
So, Mr. Mullally has told us that Jay Gilbertson from the East Dakota Water Development District usually tries to organize an annual meeting of all admin and staff, and it allows to discuss legislation, trade ideas, methods, so all the districts are kind of on the same page, especially when it comes to January during the legislative session. Mr. Mullally is requesting some funds to go to this. Mileage per diem to Pier, and a possible hotel room depending on when the meeting is and depending on the schedule. He is assuming a maximum of $350, but we all know with the blizzard possibly coming up on Friday that I feel is a little bit of low ball, so I would like to propose a motion to authorize Mr. Mullally $500 to go with as the maximum, but only bill for what he actually uses.
All right, there was a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Nathan. Discussion from the board.
I think Dan has come back frequently with a lot of good information from the meeting, so I'm going to be voting for it. I'd ask that when he comes back, he just gives us a short blurb write-up before the meeting that he returns from. Well, after he returns from the meeting, before our next meeting.
Okay, fair enough. Will you do that, Dan?
I certainly will.
Okay.
Is this motion okay, Mr. Mack?
Yes, if Mr. Jovic agrees to it.
Okay.
Trip to Pier for that purpose, yeah. Okay. district administration meeting.
We don't have that.
Is the date not determined yet?
Correct. This may not even happen. I talked to Jay Gilbertson, and he's still thinking it's a possibility, but then we also normally have something in January for the legislative session, which will be another item, but that's where we're at now.
So do we have a date when you have to give that back, or are you going to use that for the next session? Are we approving it for
Well,
that?
if this doesn't happen, of course I won't, unless you want to make this 500. I would say we just vote again on whatever comes up next, probably the best.
Maybe we ought to have, if needed, if you're not certain the meeting's going to take place, in the motion.
I would entertain that amendment if Mr. Jovic agrees to that.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm sorry. Could you
Just put if needed at the end.
If needed at the end.
Yeah. How's that? Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Did you get Linda's?
Did you? Are you still there, Linda? He's gone.
You can hear it in the background, but I don't know if she actually.
She's muted.
Are you there?
So I think that's why I went to FaceTime is that.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you.
Okay, I do encourage Dan to go to those meetings, and I vote in favor.
Very good. Thank you. I lost you there for a minute.
Okay, and I had just gotten an indication from an aide that the nurse is in my mother's room, and I think I need to be there as well.
So you're going to leave the meeting?
If I may, I would like to leave the meeting at this point, please.
I understand. Hope things go well for you.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you.
thanks for
I'm
joining
sorry I couldn't be there, but this is where I need to be. So I will plan to see you all next month.
Okay, thank you. Well, good luck.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, so
See, that's at
8:32.
8:32 Central Time, 7:32 Mountain Time. Linda Harris has left the meeting.
Okay.
So we still have a quorum.
Yep.
Chair's comments? I don't have any comments.
Nope.
Nope,
So
14A.
we're back up. Gotta do.
All right. Sorry about that. Just anxious to keep it moving. Sewer backup update by Director Bialotta.
Well, the city did make a new amendment to their ordinance that instead of $4 a square foot for somebody's water damage, they're going to offer $5 a foot and backdate it to this current year. Most people I've talked to, that still won't help them. One of the houses is condemned for electrical fire due to flooding. And they're really bent over the barrel. People that own their own home free and clear can no longer live in it. I know the city attorney's office is still looking at possible litigation coming from this. There's also the part of the claim that said if somebody has insurance that they're not to be paid. The city has amended that to say they'll pay their deductible, but some people have homeowners insurance, but it does not cover water backup. And some people do have water backup, but there's already a $5,000 max, even though their home might exceed in value. They might have a 1,500 square foot basement where the city would potentially already owe $7,500. So many a person is questioning the city's motives because it basically tells people don't go get homeowners insurance, because regardless, your homeowners insurance is the lower end of the stick. And a lot of people are feeling blighted by the city. I know I talked to the city's attorney about this, about my case and some of the other cases, and he did discuss it with the city that if there is a potentially, empathetic jury, that the city could really lose quite large. That the city is open to litigation because the city's water is not protected under the Government Powers Act, so they can be sued. And I did find out that Sioux Falls had a similar issue, and they had said, hey, Sioux Falls handled it this way. And that came from the city saying that the city of Sioux Falls handled their claims basically in the same manner as what they're doing now. What they negated to tell the audience is that the city of Sioux Falls was successfully sued, and the city of Sioux Falls had to indeed pay all those people their actual damages. And in some cases, I think they bought, don't quote me exactly, but approximately a dozen homes, which were damaged beyond, typical damage. They were basically totaled out. Due kind of the same nature as what we're seeing in some of these low-lying areas, that the city cannot promise not to keep the sewer out of their house next year. So this could be a recurring thing where the city's paying out this claim every month to a homeowner. And that's left a lot of people in the lurch of whether to rebuild or not, or even to sell their home and at what loss. So there might be a group of individuals coming that seek money for litigation in the same manner that Sioux Falls did, seeing that that was a very successful litigation.
Okay.
That's it. That's all I got.
And then 14B, discussion of a vacancy on the board.
Well,
That's your item two.
as it sits, due to unfortunate circumstances, Director
Steve
Rollinger is incapacitated. I think he's missed 4 out of 12 monthly meetings now. And I know it is, long-term physical health is very important, and I would not hold it against him to miss another meeting. However, if we're missing a half a meeting, almost up to a half a year's of board meetings, I think it's time we declare the seat vacant.
Well, I can give you an update. I had coffee with him this morning. He's home now. He's taking physical therapy at home, speech therapy, although his speech is pretty good. He's got movement in his left leg. He can stand up, move his leg, he can move his hip up. He can walk with a 4-pronged cane. And he actually wanted to come to the meeting tonight, but his insurance won't allow him to come to this meeting yet. So I would not be in favor of declaring a vacancy, because he'd like to come back. He's obviously had.
Right. No, I understand the will is there, but under most of the laws in the country, anybody that misses more than 3 of annual meetings is then declared the board vacant. I think it's in our bylaws of after somebody's medically incapacitated, which is what I would say at this point, that he desires to come here, and we wish him the best. However, he's unable to, and he's not even allowed to by his medical or insurance at this time. That would make his position vacant.
Well, I for one would not support that motion at all.
I don't even know if it's something that's arguable outside of our bylaws. That it is what it is. He's missed 4 meetings at this point. That the position is declared vacant by a rule.
But he was here in the July meeting. He was here in July, so he missed August, September, October, and this one. He would like to come. He is really wants to come to the next meeting if at all possible. Dan?
I'm pretty familiar with our bylaws. I don't recall seeing anything regarding those circumstances. We're a director to resign. We, of course, declare the position vacant, but I don't have any recollection of anything in our bylaws addressing it. I think you'd have to go to state law to see if there's anything there. I recall Bennington County dealing with somewhat similar circumstance with the commissioner, and
After 3 months.
they'd asked him to resign, and I know he didn't. I don't think they had a legal position to. But at any rate, I think before we could take any sort of action on it, we'd need to know what the combination of our bylaws and state law would dictate relative to these circumstances.
I tend to agree with Director Driscoll, but this is another opportunity where we need to discuss how do we bring a lawyer to one of our meetings. Can just one director bring him? Does it require a vote just because he's on retainer and we're going to spend money? This is one of those that we should have, give the lawyer in advance exactly what Dan Driscoll just said. Here we have a man missing.
Yeah.
But does it require us to vote?
If we're spending money, I think we need to vote.
If it's under a certain dollar.
I had, Bob got a hold of me, wanted me to have an attorney here tonight, and I said, I'm not going to unilaterally ask the attorney to come here without board approval. Chairman? Yes.
That's incorrect. I said that during the course of our conversation later in the meeting.
No, Bob Williams asked me that.
Oh, okay.
It
wasn't me.
You asked me, but Bob sent me an email, and
I think we need board action to request our attorney services.
Yes, I think we need to, as a board.
Yeah.
I was not comfortable unilaterally having an attorney here tonight, and spending taxpayer money unless the board is in approval of
Mr.
it.
Chairman.
I
I think we were talking about the next session, which was the executive session. That's what I was asking for,
Yes.
was have a lawyer present for that executive session. And we'll discuss this in that. This is just another example where that we should have the ability as a director to have maybe 1, 2, 3 directors weigh in and suggest to have a lawyer.
As long as it's voted on and approved by the board.
Well, I don't know how we can do that, because even online we're not supposed to meet in large quantities to make any decision unless there's been that's just not part of our bylaws.
Yeah. Something worth discussing, I guess. Yes.
I wanted to weigh in on that. I guess I would agree with Director Williams. If we've got an executive session like we've got scheduled for tonight, there should be an attorney there. There just should be. That's kind of an automatic thing that goes with an executive session. Just by you mentioning an executive session means that there's something legal, there's something going on in that meeting that needs to be weighed in by an attorney.
Well,
yeah, and you're the one that called the meeting.
I called the meeting, and I can tell you, Mr. Jovic, I worked for the city, and I can tell you, I went to a lot of executive sessions, and we didn't have attorneys there.
Well, I haven't been to one.
Huh?
I haven't seen one that doesn't have an attorney.
City attorney's present at every meeting.
Nope.
During the executive session there.
Let's wait till people are called on. Would be my suggestion.
Yeah. I had 14 years of sitting in executive
City
sessions.
attorney sits there right at city council.
No, he's at the city council, but he's not in the executive committee meetings.
That's when they hold the executive meetings is at city council.
No. I know, I was there, Mr. Violetta.
You're talking about a department?
Anyway, any more discussion on 14B?
I suggest then we contact the attorney to see what the state law says. Because in my opinion, you could only miss 3 or 4 meetings per annum before you're declared vacant.
You got a motion?
That's a motion.
I'd second that motion.
Here's a second by Bob. Discussion.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this agenda item was laid out as a voting item.
It was part of the agenda.
I realize
It wasn't advertised.
It doesn't have to be. It was added to the agenda in proper form. And hence, it's on the agenda as an actionable item.
Yes.
I guess I'm wondering why is there a problem with just voting on it?
I don't know if there's a problem with it.
Okay.
All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Let's have the discussion first.
Oh, I thought we were done discussing. Okay.
Can I get the motion?
Motion was to contact the attorney to see what the rules are for noticing a position being vacant due to health, illness, or otherwise absence. Because I think in our bylaws it specifically states if somebody's incapacitated, they do not have, we can list it as.
Do we have the bylaws here?
Yeah, I could bring them up.
Let's see what the bylaws say.
I think it's
Let
under.
him
I
get
think
his
it's under.
motion down first, please.
Let's get the motion down.
I'm paraphrasing here, so correct me if something like that.
Sure.
Could we, before we make a final deal, do I get a chance? Can I say?
Was there a second?
I second it.
Bob seconded it.
Yeah, discussion.
So that we could go into
Discussion is still
discussion.
com- Yeah, discussion's still coming up.
Yeah.
But I'd like to make sure that we have the, that it mentions the director's opening, or even admin, if we had 2 or 3 admin people. We need to know, in this case, in the case of our director that's been absent, what the state law is requiring, if there's any state law that requires him to be replaced.
I've read the bylaws and policies, and I don't recall anything.
Yeah,
I think it was under advertising a vacancy, and it says the vacancy due to, and it goes into like several different instances. Under advertising of vacancies.
Is that in?
Can you do a search? Do a search for advertise or something?
This is the bylaws. Let me bring up the policy, which has a lot more in it. Go to if anybody sees anything, shout out, and I'll try to find it.
Would it be under that voluntary termination thing?
What number?
So that's
23.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
All employers are encouraged to provide a minimum of 4 weeks notice of separation of service.
No, that doesn't do it.
Involuntary. Scroll up, please. Employee discipline.
That's not, that would be
Grievance.
Could I be recognized while he's searching?
Sure.
I'd like to offer a substitute motion that we direct our administrator to search primarily the bylaws. Policy will not shed any light on it. And then the justification or the directive for formation and operation of water development districts is within the DENR website. Really, I don't think it's going to require legal action. I would first ask that our administrator, do a first search on it while we wait to see what Director Rollinger's status is for next month, and come forward next month with come up with a plan. I agree that if Director Rollinger is going to be able to not be able to attend indefinitely, some sort of action needs to be taken. But it sounds like he's, at least very close to being able to likely attend by phone. So my motion would be to direct our administrator to do some research on it and then determine at the next month what our status is.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Tom. Discussion.
That even if Dan does a perfect job, he's not a legal assistant or an attorney to know the law. And if the law states one thing and he's unable to find it, we're bound to follow the law.
And then he can make his, sorry, you mind if I be recognized? James, I don't mean to step on your toes. And then if he feels that it should be researched further, then we can have a vote on hiring the attorney to look into it.
I agree.
Exactly, yeah.
And we could have it done now by the next meeting, and if Dan is unable to find said information in a week or two, that'll still give the attorney 2 weeks to find it before the next meeting.
Are you looking to propose a substitute? Oh, sorry, I'm not sure, so we'll just...
Go ahead, Dan.
When I've tried to get answers from the state, they usually tell me to consult our attorney. I'll just throw that in there. So maybe you want to allow for an hour's worth of time or 2 hours worth of attorney time here.
Because if Dan's already being told by the state, you're basically telling Dan to go waste his time and get told to go call our attorney.
But I could search the state laws.
It's in writing. It's on the website. The law's pretty clear on formulating and operation of districts.
So it would be the DENR website?
Yeah.
He had.
Okay, Nathan.
I'm not sure that anybody here knows if it's clear or not. It could be in case law. I mean, who knows?
I don't.
So that's where the attorney comes into the equation. So I'm for just doing it right, having the attorney weigh in.
Dan?
Yes.
Can we set up some sort of part of the fund that we have set aside for admin to address any okay, if we have a 6-hour meeting or a 5-hour meeting at $225 an hour, that's going to be something less than $3,000. Have it set aside so that we can ask for it, or
Well, we have a contingency. We could probably, we have an item for legal, don't we, on the budget?
We do. Just because it's on the budget doesn't mean I feel comfortable paying it without a vote.
no,
I guess I'm not sure what we're getting at.
what I'm trying to get at is so that we don't have to worry about how much it's going to cost. We've already committed to having a lawyer. We have we have at least 2 situations where it would be very handy to have one, and they should be present in those situations. And if we set it up so that we can put it in our bylaws that state lawyer should be present for executive session or
Just for reference, on our budget, legal services, we budgeted $3,000.
is that part of it?
Okay.
I guess my opinion is that the lawyer is very expensive, and I could do my best to try to get an answer without paying an attorney, although it's just my opinion.
Can I make a substitute motion? That we give Dan his due diligence, give him a week or two to try, and if he does not come up with a clear and cut answer, that we pre-authorize to call the attorney to determine the fact.
There's a motion on the floor, a substitute motion.
Can we?
Second substitute motion.
Can we modify this substitute motion, or should I make?
Second substitute motion.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Nathan. Discussion.
I think this covers everybody's bases, and if we can find the answer without any legal cost, excellent. But if Dan can't, to wait an additional 2 months possibly to vote on it the next meeting and not know the answer until the following meeting would be
What's your time frame?
to have the information before the next meeting.
No, for Dan's research.
Give him 2
portion.
weeks.
2 weeks?
That way we have 2 weeks of lawyer time that he can fit an hour into his schedule to tell us what the case law or state law says.
Is that capture?
After answer, the word answer, put within 2 weeks. That would be of tonight.
Is that your motion?
That's my
And
motion.
do we want to put an hour limit on the attorney?
I wouldn't expect it to take more than 3-4 hours. I can't imagine it going over 2, but I'm fairly certain he'll have a legal aid pull up the answer and have us down for at least an hour.
Okay.
I'd like to substitute back to my original substitute motion in that part of my logic was that 1 month from now, we will know whether Director Rollinger will be back or not, and if he is, it's a moot point, and at that point in time, we'd be ready to proceed. So I see no sense calling an attorney until we know Rollinger's status.
But if the attorney says after 3 months the seat's vacated, it should be advertised before the next meeting.
That was my substitute motion, substituting back. If there would be a second on it.
I'll second it.
So we're filing on another one here?
Well, I think if I could just offer a comment, that we're kind of going around the bush, that we could probably just as well vote, just keep circling.
I would suggest we start voting on these and work our way down. If everybody has an opinion
We
already.
can do that. It's probably a good idea.
Fair enough.
I'll take back my second.
Let's do some voting.
Okay, we're voting on the lower one there, substitute motion by Bialotta, seconded by Jovic, to direct the administrator, research policies, bylaws, DNR website, etc., to determine if a vacancy exists. If the administrator cannot determine the answer within 2 weeks as of today, he is authorized to consult with the West Dakota Water Development District Attorney. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. No.
Aye. They,
Roll call.
do we have Linda on the line?
No,
she's
she left
off.
the
Oh,
meeting
that's
at
right.
8:32.
She's off.
Roll call? Or,
Yeah,
yes.
roll call.
Jovic,
Aye.
Rollinger, Williams,
Aye.
Mack,
Nay.
Bialotta,
Aye.
Harris. Coe.
Nay.
Bierke.
No.
Driscoll.
No.
Motion fails.
Okay, that brings us to this substitute motion.
Can I make one comment real fast? If this puts us against the law, you guys are willing to go with that?
I'm willing.
But we're going to vote on it, and we'll determine that, I guess. So the next motion, the substitute motion by Driscoll, seconded by Mack, to direct administrator to research policies, bylaws, DENR website, etc., determine if a vacancy exists. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Nay.
No. Roll call.
Rollinger. Williams.
No.
Mack.
Aye.
Bialotta.
No.
Harris. Coe.
Aye.
Bierke.
Aye.
Driscoll.
Aye.
Jovic.
Nay.
Motion carries.
I guess that's the end of it.
That's my action.
That's the end of it on that one. Then moving to I have no comments as the chair. Are there any items from directors?
I do, Mr. Chair.
Bob, go ahead.
I had a chance to go on the 25th of September to the meeting at School of Mines here about the green roof. And it was a really good presentation given by Jason Phillips. And what I'd like to request is that admin get in touch with Jason Phillips and have him come in and give us the last half of his presentation, which covers results from what he's discovered with the green new roof and all the monitoring that we paid for. Please.
Okay. Anything else from directors?
I've got something.
Okay, go ahead.
What was it, Dan, about a week or so ago? You got a call from John Zyko.
Yes.
So
He did give you his exact.
Zaiko, I think.
Correct, John Zyko, on the October 2nd. So
Okay.
if you have any, I can add maybe. I have a lot of notes here. But
Yeah.
I turned him over to Director Jovic because it concerned the Missouri water allotment.
So I called Mr. Zyko and spoke with him for quite a while. He is interested in trying to set up a new slaughterhouse in Murdo. He was exploring the logistics associated with that. Murdo apparently does have an industrial area set aside for new businesses like this. However, they don't have a water supply to support a business like this. So he started shopping other communities along the I-90 corridor and found out that the story was pretty much the same all along the corridor, that nobody seemed to have water resources that could support an operation like this. So he is interested in our project. I don't know how he heard about our project or us, but apparently he started researching it and heard about this study that we're doing to get water from the Missouri River up here. Became very interested, and so he called Dan and I spoke with him. He is trying to get some kind of conference together that would involve governmental entities out of Pierre and these smaller communities along the I-90 corridor to garner interest in getting water from the Missouri. So, so after having that discussion with him, I did suggest to him that, especially since he was looking in Murdo, and apparently he's from that area, and as we know from the signs along the interstate, that's one of John Thune's hometowns, that I suggested to him that he contact Thune's office and see if they would be interested in supporting something like that. I was thinking about the potential impact of this project further, and I have been hearing about a similar project up in North Dakota for some time, so I decided to try to get a hold of somebody in North Dakota that would be able to provide some more information about what they have going on. It turns out that the North Dakota State Engineer is somebody that I know. I was able to speak with him, and he gave me some information about several projects up there, but the one in particular is it's called the Red River Valley Water Supply Project. And apparently they are looking at piping Missouri River water from somewhere, I think it's north of Bismarck, over toward the east, with the ultimate goal of trying to get water into the Cheyenne River north of Jamestown that would somehow feed into the water supply of Fargo and Grand Forks. So the scope of this project is significant. They're talking about a 72-inch diameter pipeline. Not sure what the total distance is there, but I pulled it up on MapQuest, and it looked like, excuse me, well over 100 miles that they would be piping this. Cost of the project, cost estimate right now is about $1.2 billion. And I asked him who would have additional information on this project, and I was told that the consultant working on it is AE2S out of Grand Forks. Turns out again that I know people at AE2S out of Grand Forks, so I called them. They are coming down here to the Rapid City area at the end of this month, and I asked them if they would be able to bring somebody with them that could potentially discuss this project. And he said if I could get an audience put together that would be, comprised of different entities, that they would be willing to do that. They'd be willing to take a couple of people from their office down with them to discuss this. So one of the things that I'm thinking is that I would like to try to get a meeting set up with various people in the community for a day that would work out with these guys, and maybe see if we could have the School of Mines present the report on their study that they did for us. Hopefully it will be complete by then. That could be an introduction, and then we would have the AE2S present on their project, and then we could open it up to see how much interest there is amongst the audience members there. So I'm just throwing this out there. So if I think what I'll do is I'll try to get the pieces put together and see if we can get something to Dan for distribution to the rest of you, and then you can take it from there and see if you want to participate yourself or know others that might want to.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Anybody else? Yeah.
Maybe I'll just follow in behind that. Has this entity in Murdo had any contact with the West River Water Development District?
I don't know.
I believe the West River Water Development District encompasses Lyman Jones, Lakeby Jackson, do you recall, Tim? And eastern Pennington County. Anyhow, they are probably within the project area of the West River Water Development District, and it would probably make good sense for them to be in the loop.
Yeah.
Yes, when I talked to him, I think he said he had contacted them, and he did mention Lyman Jones, and just a couple other things. He said this facility would use 1 million gallons a day, and the main reason he contacted us, he had talked to Davis at the School of Mines, because this pipeline, may be a possibility that this potential customer would affect decisions on that. But one of the things he said he was trying to do is get a conference with USDA and people, different entities and agencies, Ellsworth Authority. He specifically said you don't want big cities, like they wouldn't be interested in Rapid City, for example.
Well, Lyman Jones probably doesn't have enough water to provide 1 million gallons a day, probably.
He mentioned a guy named Mr. Ring at USDA in Pierre. I don't know if that's anything.
Yeah, just you're right. He did mention that to me also. The issue with the big cities was that if we did that, then USDA wouldn't be able to be part of that because they've got a population threshold apparently. So that was the basis for that.
Okay.
There is a gentleman with Rural Development, which is under Department of Ag, U.S. Department of Ag here in Rapid City. His name is Tim Potts. I know that he's had a lot of involvement with water projects with the tribes. That's right. And whether I'm not sure whose area would overlap, it could be handled out of here. But,
what was that name again?
Tim Potts.
Tim Potts is his name.
Okay. Anything else? Directors? Okay, Dan, items from the admin.
I got a few notes here. The budget has been submitted as required by law, and maybe not go into detail tonight, but when we have more people here, we're missing 2 people, I'd like to discuss our bank accounts, the security of them. Just roughly, our average balance over the past 2 years has been about $429,000. We only get 0.25% interest on the savings account, and I just did some rough calculations. If we put half of that into, say, a CD, 1 year, 2 year, maybe even 5 year, we could be making $3,000 or $4,000 a year on that, above what we're making now. So something maybe we need a discussion on. Plus, it might help the security a little bit better, because right now, if somebody did try to get into our account once, they weren't able to do anything. But I've always been concerned because there's an automatic transfer from savings. If, say, somebody wrote a bad check, it would automatically come out of savings. So something to maybe ponder here. This lady, Holly, I talked to her today with the septic grant, still going through legal stuff with her neighbor. And the Grover Construction, the guy that doesn't want to honor his bid, so just update you on that. The $5,000 we haven't paid out yet. I don't know if anybody saw this interactive map with DENR service data, but it's kind of interesting. I emailed the link to you, so you can. This is just a screenshot of an example from near the wastewater treatment plant. Let's see. I guess that's about it. I'm gonna have to provide a financial report to the state. Kathy Haveman did it for us last year, and she did it for free. And maybe I'll just do it myself. I'm gonna look at the requirements. I guess the more immediate item here is, according to our policies, I need to be evaluated by the board. And I've only been through this once, and the secretary was the lead person on that, so Director Harris would probably be the logical one. And we need to do that in December, at least have the forms passed out. And that's outlined in the policies, define the categories and how to score things. So hopefully Director Harris will be back, and I've talked to her about it.
I noticed a little bit further, could you scroll down to the Ken Steichen comment? We asked for a little update for Ken Steichen, who was...
Up.
Oh, it's right.
Yeah, down.
Trinity.
There.
Right there. Yeah, right there. Trinity.
Sorry, I missed that one. He hasn't gotten back to me yet.
Okay.
He said he would.
Yeah. I just thought, since we were trying to work on stream control, runoff control, that's the example right across the street from our officers. So it'd be nice to have him give us a little rundown of what he's discovered.
Yeah, he seemed very willing to do that.
Thanks.
So your next comment down, Matt Nas, so did he contact you prior to this meeting?
No, Ron Koth and I had been discussing this, and I did talk to him. And the consensus was that unless we told him to be at a meeting, he wasn't going to come to the meeting. So
The consensus between you and Ron?
And yeah, basically.
The way that we interpreted our actions were that board action was required to request the attorney to be present. He wasn't required to be at a board meeting just to sit for potential use. We needed to request his presence or his time, or give him a task to do, rather than have him just attend. Okay. That was the way that we hired him. We just confirmed that with him.
He reached out to me and wanted some guidance on what he expected, so that's why
Prior to this meeting?
No, this
was a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Right after we hired him.
I had lunch with him.
Okay, but your note says our attorney contacts me before each meeting to see if he is needed. So did he contact you prior to this meeting?
No. That's actually inaccurate. He had been before the previous meetings, but I think now we have an understanding that he's on our distribution list for the notices. However, he hasn't contacted me.
Anything else, Dan?
No.
Okay, thank you. Is there any items from the public? Okay.
Very much. I have 2 comments. One you sit up there.
Yeah, come up here so we can identify ourselves again so we get it in the record.
I wouldn't want to be out of the record. Okay, I have 2 comments. One is about this pipeline project to bring Rapid City or Missouri River water to the West River area. I don't represent them, but I'm a member of the Clean Water Alliance, and we feel that major component of that ought to be water conservation. If we're gonna pay money to bring water that far, we want a good productive use out of it. That's our, put an emphasis on reclamation and all that, so we get our money's worth, essentially. And the second is regarding the executive sessions. I've served on school board, farm cooperative board, township board, nonprofit boards. Never have I seen an attorney in executive session, ever. I have about 45 years cumulative experience. Never happened. Just saying.
Okay, thank you. Kim, come up and identify yourself.
Very quickly, Tim Bjork from Rapid City. If an individual wants to get water rights, he has to contact the Division of Water Rights and DENR first. All the other things that he's working on are kind of peripheral to contacting water rights, because they're the ones that have issued the water rights in the state. If he wants to drill a well, if he wants to tap into the city, any of those kinds of things. So, yeah, just an FYI.
We have the Missouri water right.
Understand. You have a Missouri water right. But if he wants a water right for a commercial operation, he needs to go to the Division of Water Rights. So, just an FYI for him if he calls again.
Okay, good advice, thank you. Any other items from the public this evening? Okay. So item number 6. I'm going to make a motion as the chairman. This is item number 6 on going into executive session to discuss conflict of interest. And the motion is to go into executive session pursuant to South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-2, Parent 1, for the purpose of discussing conflict of interest accusations of board directors. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Tom. Nathan?
Is it open for discussion now?
Yes.
Good. So, executive session is only authorized for certain reasons, right?
Correct.
Okay, so you were the one that called for this executive session, so what was the reason for that?
We want to have a discussion with the board director. This is a motion session. We're going to have a discussion with the board members regarding conflict of interest, board and accusations on board against the board members.
Okay, but I don't think that's one of the reasons listed in the law.
It is.
Right?
The law. Here's what the law says.
Okay.
Parent 1. You've not seen this? Can you put that up? I can read it.
Show me what you're...
I'm looking at, here's the law, which is codified law 1-25-2, and I'm referencing parent 1, first item. I can read it off. Assessing qualifications, competence, performance, character, or fitness of any public officer, which we are, or employees, or prospective public officer or employee. The term employee does not include any independent contractor. And so that's us.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that. It doesn't say conflict of interest, but you're putting it on paragraph 1.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
And there was a second to the motion. Any other discussion?
Can you go right back to that, Dan, please? I was trying to read that.
Sure.
Sorry.
I think it was a PDF file you pulled up there.
Oh, okay.
You want to read what I just read to me?
I'm not sure if I got the same thing here. This is from the Attorney General.
I will say that
Limited to the announcement subject, no official votes can be taken. Public body must return to open session.
I will say when Dan Mullally and Tom and I and Linda Harris attended the
Steve Rollinger.
or Steve Rollinger, yeah, Steve Rollinger attended the meeting in Pierre, legislative session at the James River Valley Water Development District. One of their presentations there was by an attorney from Pierre, specifically addressing conflict of interest. And it's too bad that we didn't have more members there, because it was very interesting and very educational to me and to the other members and to our administrator on conflict of interest. So, just saying.
Take a look at paragraph 3. Board members could be held personally liable for the results of an official vote taken illegally during an executive session.
There will be no vote taken in the executive session.
Okay. Well, once again, if
there is no vote
I'm going to be held personally responsible for any vote,
and I'm glad you
and I
brought that up.
can't have a lawyer.
I'm glad you brought that up, because there will be no action taken in this executive meeting, and there's no vote on any motions or anything in this executive meeting that's going to happen.
And then I like the second sentence, which talks about the example of contract approved only during the executive session could be found void, and board members could be required to repay any public funds spent. Does that include our, the money that we get?
We are not taking any action in this executive committee. We will come. That's what we always did with the city. There was never action taken at executive.
So this
session.
is just purely for discussion.
This is for discussion only.
And to help the lawyer figure out what he has to
and
follow.
hopefully get an understanding amongst ourselves, because this has come up time and time again. I've had people, Mr. Bialotta, claiming I have a conflict of interest because I know people at City Hall. This has got to stop.
No, having lunch with them on their dime is a conflict of interest.
I didn't have lunch with them on that.
Okay.
So anyway, we're getting point of order. Go ahead.
Since you had the meeting or the presentation, attended the presentation with the attorney, again, in my mind, that should have driven the point home in your mind that we needed the attorney here. So I'm disappointed that you didn't make that call to have that person here.
I told you I am
it.
not going to unilaterally hire our attorney to come to this meeting without board approval.
We've got email. Could have sent something out. So we should have had an attorney here at this executive
That's your opinion.
session. Okay.
Let's vote on the motion.
All right, all in favor of the motion, indicate by saying aye.
Motion again, then.
Aye.
The motion is to go into executive session pursuant to South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-2, Parent 1, for the purpose of discussing conflict of interest accusations of board directors.
Thank you.
All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are now going to go into executive session. We've asked the public and those in attendance to leave the meeting, and we will.
Can we take a break, Mr. Chair?
Oh,
Well, we're in the executive session, so we're here.
I'm going to stop the recording.